Moving forward, now we will be playing a short video showcasing the activities of Canadian University of Bangladesh. Can we have the video on screen, please?
Canadian University of Bangladesh is easily accessible at Bir Uttam Rafiqul Islam Avenue of Pragati Sharani in the heart of Dhaka city. The university occupies a modern, student-friendly, iconic, state-of-the-art campus equipped with spacious, multimedia-supported classrooms with interactive online facility, laboratories featuring cutting-edge technologies and equipment, a media-enriched library, student lounge, and other modern amenities. On the campus, you can also play sports, enjoy an unforgettable rooftop cafe experience. Immersed in the library, participate in club activities, and much more. In order to facilitate on-campus jobs, internships, and job placements, Canadian University of Bangladesh collaborates with eminent organizations. Canadian University of Bangladesh is aiming to build its legacy in the field of higher education in Bangladesh. Canadian University of Bangladesh, inspiring applied knowledge.
Thank you. So without further ado, we will start the formal session today. And we are really honored and delighted to have a distinguished guest panel with us today. As our honorable chief guest, we have Mr. Salman F. Rahman, MP, Private Industry and Investment Advisor to Honorable Prime Minister. As special guest, we have with us Mohibul Hasan Chaudhry, MP, Deputy Minister, Ministry of Education. As our guest of honor and keynote speaker, we have Her Excellency Lily Nichols, High Commissioner of Canada to Bangladesh. And as our program chair, we have with us Dr. Chaudhry Nafis Sharafat, Founder and Chairman, Canadian University of Bangladesh. Can we have a round of applause for our guest panel, please? Now I would humbly request our respected guests to take the seats on stage. Now, our program chair, Dr. Nafis Sharafat Chaudhry, Founder and Chairman of Canadian University of Bangladesh, will welcome our guests with flower bouquets. Dear volunteers, can we have the flower bouquets, please? Requesting, sir, to hand over the bouquet to our honorable chief guest. Can we have a round of applause? Sir is delivering the bouquet to our honorable guest of honor. Can we have a round of applause? To our honorable special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, to mark the inauguration of today's ceremony, we are now going to have a cake cutting session. So I'm requesting the volunteers to bring the cake on stage. Can we have a big round of applause? So we are having the cake cutting session to mark the friendship, the strong tie between Canada and Bangladesh. Thank you, dear volunteers. Dear audience, now we are going to start the session, which all of you are waiting for. Before that, let me say a few words about our honorable guest of honor today. She has 30 years of experience in international sphere of leadership and collaboration. And today, she's going to speak on Canada's feminist international assistance policy. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our guest of honor and keynote speaker today, Her Excellency Lily Nichols, High Commissioner of Canada to Bangladesh.
Good morning. Salam alaikum. Shubha Shakal. I'm truly honored to be here at the Canadian University. It's my first time speaking with students, and I'm also especially honored to be part of such an eminent group of guests. You know, the Honorable, Monsieur Rahman, Dr. Chowdhury, and Deputy Minister Chowdhury. Thank you for this invitation. I think that speaking to young people is one of my favorite things. I myself am the mother of two young men that are right now in university and in Canada. But I also think, and I hope you realize, you really are the golden generation. You are the future. You will inherit this world. But also historically, you're the most educated generation in the history of humankind. You are the most connected generation. You're also the wealthiest generation ever, which gives you a certain responsibility. And I think that for that reason, what I want to chat with you about this morning is some of the opportunities and some of the challenges that we're facing in the world, including, of course, the role that Bangladesh and Canada play in those. So I think the first thing that I want to convey is that all of us are part of a very important time in history. We live today in the wealthiest world we've ever had. So in 1980, poverty, extreme poverty in the world was 44%. So almost half the population. When I was your age, when I was starting a university, almost half the population in the world was in extreme poverty. Today, it's 9%. In the case of Bangladesh, is celebrating 50 years. When Bangladesh was, first established, poverty was 90%, and today it's 9%. That's an extraordinary achievement for Bangladeshis. But almost every data you look at, and I'm sure you observe it in your own lives, shows us how far we've come. Today, for example, we have 109 middle-income countries. Now, 30 years ago, those countries controlled about a fifth of the world economy. Today, they control a third. Okay? And 3 billion people in the world today are middle class. Okay. Now, Bangladesh itself is part of that success. Bangladesh is now a low middle income country on its way to becoming a high middle income country. And the Bangladeshi economy has gone from, you know, $18 billion economy to being a $324 billion economy in a period of about 4 years. Again, extraordinary achievements. And, you know, we're born at this time when these achievements have been made. We're also the most, as I mentioned, the most educated generation in the history of humankind. 40 years ago, in the 1960s, 8% of people in the world went to some form of post-secondary education. Today, worldwide, it's almost 40%. Life expectancy, was 47 years. I think most of us here on the panel would not be alive anymore. Today, it's 73 years. And in Bangladesh, by the way, those are exactly the data as well. Those are the life expectancy data. You're also, as you know, you're the most connected generation in the world. In 2019, there were 4.5 billion flights around the world that took place. When I was a child, taking a plane was something very rare. I'm not that old, but it just goes to show you how quickly things have changed. We have 15 billion mobile devices, twice the world's population today. So you are truly the most integrated, the most connected, the most technologically advanced generation. I mean, we can make 3D print, with 3D printers, we can make limbs. Farmers, you can use cell phones to compare prices in the market. Anyone can, through a cell phone today, receive a scan of an X-ray, even in the countryside. And I was traveling a few days ago to small villages here in Bangladesh, and I could see peasant, small, very, farmers, very, poor farmers walking around with cell phones. So it's incredible, the technology that we have today. But at the same time, we do also have challenges, and I want to speak to you about some of those daunting challenges that we're facing. So despite all those successes in reducing poverty, we still have tremendous amount of inequality, and in fact, the inequality is growing within countries in particular. But today, only 50% of the extremely poor people in the world, 50% of them, half of them, are only in 5 countries. And out of those 5 countries, 2 of those countries are in South Asia. Okay, so and during the pandemic, 120 million people slid back into poverty. So we can't take for granted some of the achievements that we've gained. Nothing is permanent. That's one message that I wanted to get across. And I think we learned that during the pandemic, or what some called, the horrible shadow pandemic. We learned that a lot of poor people in the world during the pandemic were not able to access social services. A lot of the poorest population ended up losing their assets as they tried to get relatives, to get medical help. They had the toughest burdens in terms of taking care of family members, elderly family members or children. And I think during the pandemic also, violence within the family, violence against women increased dramatically all over the world. There's no exceptions to that. We also live in a world where, even though democracy has increased. And, you know, 200 years ago, as many as 213 countries in the world were either colonies or autocracies. Okay, today, more than half of the world's population lives in a democracy. They are democracies. But we also have a situation, if you're reading the news, where we have a more polarized world, where in some ways we're returning to the post-Cold War era. We're seeing this with the war in Ukraine, where we have, you know, a divide on issues and a challenge to the rules-based world order. And that should concern us, that should concern you as our golden generation, because countries like Canada and Bangladesh, we're not superpowers. Countries like Canada and Bangladesh need a rules-based international world order. We need a United Nations with a charter that protects democracy, our sovereignty, our right to self-determination, so that larger powers don't think that they can trample on us. So I think for both our countries, this polarization that is taking place is a concern. I think another concern is that a lot of data shows that there's a growing disenchantment with our public institutions, and there's a growing disenchantment with democratic processes. And this is especially the case with young people, with your generation. So all studies done all over the world show that your generation increasingly is feeling alienated from political parties, from elections, feeling excluded from, you know, there's been so many benefits, but a lot of your generation is feeling worldwide excluded from the benefits of that, feeling underemployed, feeling like you don't have enough opportunities. And this also should be a concern. I know that when we speak about this, a lot of people think of young men that may be feeling alienated and may turn to violence, and I think that's a concern. But I want you to know that a lot of those young people are also young women, and that a lot of those young women are increasingly also being marginalized. Worldwide, 1 in 5 women experience some form of violence. In some countries in Asia, it's up to 9 out of 10 women who experience some form of violence. Girls are 2 times more likely than young men to drop out of school, and very young marriage correlates with that as well. So these are things of concern. In the world, 70% of those who get trafficked are women. Women earn 20% of what men earn for work of the same value worldwide. And in countries like Bangladesh, only 11% of managerial positions in the private sector are held by women. Okay, and worldwide, 20% of parliamentarians are women. And those figures have not changed. They've stayed that way for a long time, and I say they're global statistics. So those are concerns for all of us. Now, Canada's feminist foreign policy tries to address some of these challenges that we're facing. And the key premise of the feminist policy is essentially that we need to empower women, that women's empowerment, women's voice, women's access to opportunities and resources is essential for poverty reduction and to build a more prosperous and peaceful world. And there's evidence of that as well. That is something that we have evidence of. There's some key premises to the feminist policy in terms of key underpinning principles. I mean, I'll just name 5 of those key principles. I mean, the first principle is that the policy is about transformation. It's not just about building bridges or donating a piece of equipment. It's about changing power relations in society. Secondly, it's about human rights and the conviction, the premise that women's rights are human rights. So we cannot, if we're violating women's rights, we're violating human rights. It's also based on what experts call intersectional analysis. And what intersectional analysis means that you're not vulnerable just because you're a woman, but it's various factors that line up together. So if you're a woman and on top of that you come from an ethnic minority, if on top of that you're not educated, or you come from a poor family, all those things together create many, many layers of discrimination. And even though as I said, we've reduced extreme poverty, those being left behind are those people that experience all those layers of discrimination. And for a country like Bangladesh, which is on the verge of becoming a developed country, like those are the kinds of populations, the kinds of people we need to bring with us, make sure they're not left behind. The Canadian feminist policy, though, is also based on cultural sensitivity. It means that Canada is very conscious that we're not there to impose it. It has to be societies themselves that lead this process. And finally, the key principle of the feminist policy is that it's based on evidence. There's evidence, for example, that violence against women costs the world 2% in global GDP. There's evidence that every dollar you spend in girls' education leads not just to increased income in the society, but it leads to reduced maternal mortality, it leads to improvement in nutrition. So it's concrete evidence that this is worthwhile investments for our societies. Now, I'm very proud. I think one of the things I'm proudest of is having been part of the Canadian team that developed the Canadian Feminist International Assistance Policy and Feminist Policy. And I'm proud to say that even though it's a work in progress, it's a long-term commitment, some important achievements have been made. In Canada today, half of the Canadian cabinet is women. Half of Canadian ambassadors are women as well. I was the first generation where we were half and half for the first time. At the G7 summit held in Canada in Charlevoix in 2017, together the international community also leveraged as much as $3 billion for girls' education. And in addition to money for development programs, Canada's feminist foreign policy also applies to everything we do in every sphere of our work, including in the trade area. In the trade area, for example, Canada's new generation of free trade deals now have a gender chapter. They have an Indigenous peoples chapter. I think the free trade deal we signed with Chile was cutting edge. It was the first to do that, and that's the new gold standard for Canadian free trade deals. So Canada has a progressive trade agenda. And in areas like security and peacekeeping, we've created the ELSI initiative for women peacekeepers. And then, again, that's an area where Bangladesh is a leader. So an area where I think both of our countries have made important global contributions. In terms of what Canada has done in Bangladesh, I think it's so gratifying to me to walk around, to see the photos, because I see that Canada and Bangladesh have walked together over the past 50 years. We're celebrating this year 50 years of Canadian-Bangladeshi diplomatic relations. Canada is very proud of the fact that we were one of the first countries to recognize Bangladeshi independence. That matters. And we're there for Bangladesh, Over the past 50 years, Canada has provided over $3 billion of international cooperation to Bangladesh. And that cooperation has changed over the years. Initially, in the 1970s, it was a lot about infrastructure, rehabilitation, and food security. That's what Bangladesh needed at the time. None of you were born then, but at the time, Bangladesh was considered the world's basket case. So a lot of the assistance was food. Today, Canadian foreign assistance, international assistance is completely different. Today, we're working with some of the strongest NGOs, BRAC, at the Center for Diarrheal Diseases, and with them working on vaccination campaigns, for example. It's been an area of great importance of our cooperation. Working on issues like teenage marriage, empowering youth, and also, of course, working on critical issues such as the Rohingya refugee issues, which is another area where I think Bangladesh has shown tremendous global leadership. I don't think anyone can think of a country that has taken in 1 million refugees the way Bangladesh has. And Canada recognizes this, and we're working with Bangladesh. Yeah. So, by way of closing, let me just say that Canada and Bangladesh have a deep and long friendship. We will be there for the rest of the journey together. We share a lot of values in common. We both are promoters of democracy, a rules-based order, free trade. We're both committed to diversity and inclusion. And we're both, I think, like natural connectors and bridge builders. I think we play that role internationally, and I think that binds us. So as you, the golden generation, looks ahead, your lives are just beginning, I hope you remember how much has been achieved, how lucky we are to have been born when we were, but also how many challenges remain. And I feel without equivocation that you are the best equipped generation in our history to innovate and to find peaceful solutions to today's and tomorrow's problems. Thank you.
Wow. Women rights are human rights. Very rightly said by our keynote speaker and honorable guest of honor today. Thank you so much, Ms. Lily Nichols, for your highly informative speech. We really appreciate the inclusive and gender-friendly policy of Canada. At this point, I would request our honorable special guest, Mohibul Hassan Chaudhry, MP, Deputy Minister, Ministry of Education, to deliver his speech. Sir.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. Honorable guests, I'm not going to mention all of your names. We have been introduced repeatedly. So first of all, I would like to show my gratitude, and I'm thankful for this invitation here at the Canadian University of Bangladesh. This morning, we are celebrating Canada-Bangladesh friendship. Before me, Her Excellency Dr. Lily Nichols have said many very important things and gave a message of inspiration to the younger people present here. So just to address some of the points she had raised. Before that, I would like to pay my respect to our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and the martyrs of our great liberation war of 1971, and also the 200,000 women who were raped and abused during that war. And it was their sacrifice that made this country a possibility and a reality. So I pay my respect to the memory of all those who lost their lives during that war, and also to the memory of our father of the nation and his family members who were brutally killed in 1975. And just for our High Commissioner's information here, it was Bangabandhu who began this idea of equality of men and women in politics. In those days, this is also for your information, our youngsters here, the students. Bangabandhu began at a time when the whole of subcontinent was divided in communal lines. And that was the trend of politics in those days. In 1947, the subcontinent was divided along religious lines, and that was the trend of politics in those days. Nothing else mattered. Equality, human rights, pluralism, nothing. But for Bangabandhu, he realized that this very communal line is not sustainable. It does not ensure equality between different ethnic groups in the Indian subcontinent. It does not give any right to the religious minorities, and most importantly, to the 50% of our population in the subcontinent, the women, they are badly subjugated, and they had no rights in those days. And it was young Bangabandhu visiting China in those days. If you have read his memoir, Amar Dekha Noya Chin, where he went to China in the 50s, he was just a 30-year-old young man who went through this very communal experience and went through the whole protest and division of India along communal lines. And it was him observing in China how ensuring rights and giving authority and rights to women was changing the landscape in even rural China. From religious minorities to women, things were changing. And that is what he was thinking for Bengal, for East Bengal or East Pakistan of that time. And he was true to his belief, and he was committed to that thinking. And when he came back, it was him who started this very, quite alien concept in those days, that men and women are equal, all religious communities must be ensured equal rights, etc. And based on those values, we went and earned our liberation, our independence from Pakistan at the time. So I pay my respect on his birth centenary year. At the same time, I would like to also tell you that Her Excellency had mentioned that this generation is a blessed generation. It is wealthier, more literate, more connected. But at the same time, let us not forget, just 14 years back, when these things were happening across the world, we were not connected. We didn't even have electricity in this country. So I was in the UK for almost like 10 years of my life, but then I came back and found that in even 2009, we didn't have like half, out of 24 hours, we didn't have electricity for 10 hours of the day. So it was quite a shock to my whole system, because I was studying there, and then I came back and like stuck in Dhaka, no electricity, were like not being able to connect with the outer world. My wife at that time, she was abroad, and as you know, which many of you are obviously going through also, if you are in a long distance relationship, you are in big trouble, because you're not connected with your wife or your spouse or your husband who is not with you. So from that point onwards, things have changed radically and dramatically. And this is where I think international community and our development partners should really focus, that it is the strength of the political leadership and also the sincerity and integrity of the political leadership. And this is where I will bring in Bangabandhu's daughter, our current Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, that it was her determination that we are going to change things forever. We are not going to be a basket case anymore. We want electricity in every household. We want literacy to go up. We want connectivity. We want our people to live with same aspiration and values that in the developed world, the citizens of developed world are enjoying. So since then, she had began a program of fixing things, improving things. So it didn't come out of nowhere. The fact that you see a phone, in a rural place in Bangladesh, a farmer using that phone to connect with the market, to get information, it came because she liberalized the phone licensing regime, which was a monopoly before. And she has asked, for the telephone companies to, begin broadband connection, to, technology to work for the people, not for just the corporates to earn money or a handful to gain profit from. So, of course, we believe in corporations making money because that leads to investment, and investment leads to employment, etc. But she did not believe in kleptocracy. She destroyed the whole, very syndicated arrangement that we had in this country. So this is where I think our development partners and our allies in the developing world should realize that good governance and good policies matter as much as good elections. So often we get bogged down in elections only. Elections and perfect elections do not ensure good governance. So good governance is a must for democracy to perform. Without good governance and good institutions, democracy is just about a one-day issue where in one fine morning a good election is held, but the institutions are not performing. There's no accountability, there's no transparency, there's no public service. So I think the focus should be for all our development partners that we focus on good governance and deliberative system in this country, not just talk about abstract concepts of democracy. For me, democracy has a far more deeper meaning than just an election. It is about ensuring my service, my rights, and also getting what I deserve from the system, from the public service. Just a perfect election and change of leadership is not going to make sure that I get my service. Because unless the public service is restructured, reformed, made accountable, things are not going to change for the average citizens. And that is where Sheikh Hasina's government is making change, where constantly public service is going through reform and constantly their performance is being reviewed, and we are all working on it. At the Education Ministry, we are trying to make sure that private sector dynamism and entrepreneurial values come into this higher education sector, and also we are trying to transform the higher education sector from very knowledge-based system of certification to skill-based and outcome-based system where Bangabandhu, our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, he was the one who first wanted applied knowledge in higher education. And I like this inspiring applied knowledge slogan of this university. Now I come from a very standard higher education institution. I say that my university degree didn't give me a job. It was a fancy degree, and Miss Lily Nichols, we come from the same university, London School of Economics, but it didn't give me a livelihood when I passed out of university because I had to wait as a lawyer to be employed. So I learned some, Microsoft package, Office package, and how to do Excel and Access and database administration, and that was what gave me a job when I was in the UK. So I was doing a performance review and a statistical review for my employer then. So this is why I believe that our higher education institutions need to focus on skill-based education and micro-credentials. Long courses like honors, masters, and PhDs are not going to meet the need of the time. We need to connect our youngsters with the world of work. Often the academia, in our country, the academia never had any vocation. That is the case in most of our public universities. And also in our vocational institutions, what I had found that those who did not have any vocation are training students to be employed, to have a vocation. So if I myself, I never worked beyond academic institutions, how am I going to prepare students for the world of work? So it's absolutely important that this university, as you are claiming to promote applied knowledge, bring in industry experts and also professionals to teach at this institution about the nitty-gritties of working, world of work. Because what you learn whilst you are studying or researching or doing whatever is so fundamentally different from how you do your day-to-day job wherever you're employed. And I will also suggest to this university that we teach our students about value of different professions. Often our higher education, highly educated or university graduates often don't value skill-based professions or jobs or any tasks. Same students, when they go abroad in developed countries, are working in jobs where you have to be physically working, right? So, but then when they are here, they're undermining them. There is a big stigma attached to vocational training. So why don't we combine this world of vocational training with higher education, where our students, if they're studying history or politics, are also learning how to also have certification in maybe automobiles, mechanics, or I don't know, welding. It's important that we also teach our future generation values of these professions, because as an economy, we are transforming from agrarian economy to an industrial one. And this industry that we are having here now cannot accommodate thousands and thousands of higher education graduates. Because even American economy, which is the biggest in the world, can't absorb so many graduates, and graduates have to find jobs in different sectors. So we need to tell our youngsters that, you know, graduation is not enough. University degree is not enough. You have to be multi-skilled. You have to learn job-relevant skills, and you have to be multilingual, and you have to have multiple skills to be employed in this world. And just focusing on Bangladesh is not enough. Yes, of course, you can focus in Bangladesh. You can try to be self-employed here, and you can only be successful in self-employment if you have multiple skills. If you learn something vocational and go abroad, with your university degree, you can climb up and maybe be a manager or a supervisor because you have a degree. But at the same time, if you have a vocational training, you will have the first entry point into a job. So you can see, you know, Indian managers and supervisors in the Middle East, you know, most of them had some sort of vocational training first, but because of their higher education, they are getting quickly promoted to senior positions, whereas we are stuck at where we start. So these things have to be addressed by this university, and I believe our friends in Canada will help us on this, especially in the skills-based higher education, where we would like to incorporate vocational and skill-based education into our higher education, where we can learn from Canada. Because I was discussing with one of the members in the team that, you know, we've heard that in Canadian school system in the past, they used to have a system where before students went to university, they had to go through some sort of vocational training so that they have some life skill before they go into the abstract education. So with this, I end my speech here. Thank you very much. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangabandhu. May Bangladesh and Canada's friendship live forever. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Definitely the Shonar Bangla, our father of the nation, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, dreamt of, is being made a reality by our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. And thank you so much to our honorable special guest for the wonderful speech. And I would like to mention that Canadian University of Bangladesh is always grateful to Mohibul Hassan Chaudhry, sir, for his continuous support since the inception of our university. Now, I would like to request our Honorable Chief Guest, Mr. Salman F. Rahman, MP, Private Industry and Investment Advisor to Honorable Prime Minister, to deliver his thought about the friendship between two countries.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Excellency High Commissioner of Canada to Bangladesh, Honorable Deputy Minister for Education, and very close younger brother of mine. Well, he calls me uncle, but you see what happened is everybody used to call me bhai. And then suddenly they started calling me uncle. And then I realized that, yes, I've now become, my status has actually, I've graduated from bhai to uncle now. So anyhow, then my nephew, Nafis, all of the young people in front of me, the faculty of the Canadian University of Bangladesh, Assalamu alaikum. It's a real pleasure, and whenever I'm addressing young people, I'm inspired. So I would like to really thank Nafis for giving me this opportunity today to meet all of you. At the beginning, I'll first tell you I'm not going to be brief, because both High Commissioner as well as Deputy Minister have raised so many points that he's given me a lot of food for thought, and I'd like to mention some of the, take up some of the issues they have mentioned. So, at the beginning, I'd like to actually give some background of Bangladesh, which of course Deputy Minister very eloquently said. I would also like to, this is the month of March, by the way, and this is really one of our most important months of the year. As you know, in March we have the historic 7th March speech of Bangabandhu, and that speech is actually, বাংলায় যেটা আমি বলি that সেটা আমাদের স্বাধীনতার দলিল কিন্তু, and এখন আন্তর্জাতিক স্বীকৃতি পেয়ে that has really, it's been, the speech has been given as recognized by UNESCO, and it is actually, if you really were to study that speech, I personally feel that it's one of those really, it's a speech which young people, if you all were to go line by line also, you would actually really understand how Bangabandhu's mind was working at that time. I think I would be one of the very few people in this room who had the great honor and privilege as a very young man of being present in that meeting on the 7th of March. And so, you know, I cannot describe to you our emotions at that time. So having that speech recognized internationally today is definitely something which we all as a nation should be proud of. So I would like to recall with great respect, and so then I said 7th of March is the historic speech. In March again, the 17th of March, which is Bangabandhu's birthday, and we have been celebrating the 100 years of his birth. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we had very big plans. We were not able to implement all of those, but still, we have, within the limitations of COVID, I think we did a good job. And then, of course, 26th March, our Independence Day. So, I would like to recall with great respect, Father of the Nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the martyrs, the women who gave their ultimate sacrifice for giving us this beautiful country. And what actually, where we are today, and this is something which is very important, which Naufal said, that where we are today just didn't happen on its own. It just doesn't happen by itself. Actually, we had Bangabandhu only for 3.5 years. But in that 3.5 years, where we had an absolutely war-torn country, while at the one time, at the one hand, he was addressing the, you know, he had inherited a country which was completely, you know, our foreign exchange, today we are saying, our foreign exchange reserves is nearly $50 billion. When Bangabandhu inherited his country, our foreign exchange reserve was zero. Literally zero. Because whatever foreign exchange we had in the central bank, it was taken away by the Pakistanis. So we had absolutely no foreign exchange. So while he was rebuilding the country, facing that kind of situation, he was also doing something else. He was laying out a plan, a blueprint of what Bangladesh would be in the future. And what Honorable Prime Minister keeps saying, that today whatever she is doing, she is being able to do it because she received this master plan from her father. And she is actually implementing that master plan, and by implementing and building on that, we are where we are today. So So what I was saying was that yes, it did not happen on its own. A lot of hard work was required. And what is very much evident that for the 21 years after Bangabandhu was and his entire family was brutally assassinated, during that 21 years, if you see how we grew, and in the last 12, 13 years how we have grown, you will, and if you compare, I'm sure I'm not going to go into those statistics. As young people, I'm sure you have access to those. But if you compare, then you will actually see what we have been able to achieve under the dynamic leadership of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. And this tremendous growth is one of the main reasons for this, is what actually Naufal referred to is political stability. Political stability is the most important factor for this growth. If you remember, in those 21 years, we had either military autocracy, or even if we had some form of democracy, but if you remember the instability that was there. I remember in my role as a businessman, when foreigners came to meet me, all the foreign business people who were doing business with Bangladesh, their vocabulary had increased with one word, and that was hartal. They all came to know what hartal is. And today, we have completely forgotten, and that is something else. Human nature is such that as you progress, as you go, it is psychological that the brain forgets all the bad things. Many bad things have happened to you, but as you go up, it is natural that you forget the bad things and you only remember the good things. And so, when he was mentioning about load shedding, I remembered it because at that time, that period he's talking about, I was in prison. And in jail, you can imagine in jail, if you don't have electricity for 14 hours, it's a pretty, once you are in jail, on top of that you have no electricity. So that was the kind of situation we were facing. And not only myself, even Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was exactly in the same position. So political stability, as I was saying, is very, very important. And that is actually, I think, the fact that we have been able to have continuous government and somebody in power who is actually committed to the welfare of the people. That is the reason why we have achieved what we have achieved today. And where we are today, I'm not going to go into the statistics of that, but we are now recognized as a role model. As you know, I'm in charge of promoting investment. So a lot of potential investors, existing investors, a lot of very senior government bureaucrats, foreign government bureaucrats come and meet me when I visit to promote Bangladesh. One of the main questions which everybody asks is, how did you do this? How have you been able to come to where you have? So I would like to give you a brief, I'll give you what I feel, what has been the secret of our success, and that this political leadership and this political stability has given us. The first and foremost success story of Bangladesh is our agriculture sector. You see, we are a very small country. In fact, we are 160 million people in the size of, I don't know the comparison, Excellency, with your Canadian provinces, but with America, we are 160 million people in the size of Wisconsin. So you can imagine how densely populated we are. We are, in fact, one of the most densely populated country in the world. Not one of, we are the most, if you ignore Hong Kong and Singapore, which are city-states. But we are today self-sufficient in food. Not only we are growing enough food to feed ourselves, we are also exporting food. We are the third largest producers of vegetable. We are the third largest producer, fourth largest producer of rice in the world. We are the third largest producer of fish, our dairy farms, all this. So this is the most important, because food security is the most important for any country. And that is our agricultural success has really been a real success story. So I'm going to give you the success stories, and just like High Commissioner said, I'm also then going to talk about the challenges. So this is one. The second reason for our success is electricity. You see, when Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina took over, the first thing she did was that she went to, yesterday, of course, we have achieved 100% electrification, but she started working on this. And if you remember, when she said that I am going to go for rental power, for 1 year she tried to go for rental power. But our procurement rules did not allow. So then she said that, no, I am going to go, I want to give unsolicited. And you changed the law for that. And the law was changed. We had the Speedy Electrification Act passed in Parliament. And I remember when we did that, the opposition, in fact, the leader of the opposition herself said that all these people who are doing the rental powers, those who are getting the rental powers, I will put in jail when I come to power. And also all the officers who are signing the files will be prosecuted when I come to power. And it was actually the Rental Power Act which started off the electrification. And then today we are where we are, and the economy has grown because of the electrification. Second is, for the economy to grow, energy is the most important single factor. So when we started seeing that we are running, you see, another very interesting fact is that when Prime Minister was in power between 1996 and 2001, there was a lot of pressure on her that we should export gas to India. And she said that I have no problem exporting gas to India, but before I do that, I want to find out how much gas we have. Do we have enough gas to meet our own needs? Only after that assessment is done. Before that assessment is done, I will not allow export of gas. And as it turned out, she was 100% right. Even after not exporting gas to India, when our economy started growing, we very soon found that we were running out of gas ourselves. And then we went into, as you have heard about it was a big challenge, and then we started importing LNGs, and we have these FSRUs, and so all of this work was done. So energy was the second. So agriculture and then energy. The third really success story of Bangladesh is digital Bangladesh. You see, High Commissioner mentioned that your generation is one of the most connected in the world. But I must add a caveat to that. There are many people of your generation in many countries of the world today who do not have the privilege of being as connected as you are. And the reason for that is that when it was said that we will do digital Bangladesh, people laughed. Said in Bangladesh this is not possible. And today we have a fiber optic backbone laid up to the union level. We have now connected over 3,500 unions with the fiber optic connectivity, and very soon all the 4,900 unions will be connected. So this has given rise to this huge young freelancing community. And I'll talk about freelancing for 2 minutes. So this young man comes to me and says, sir, I am a freelancer. So I said, very good, what is that? I don't know what a freelancer is. So he says that I go onto the internet, there is an international marketplace, I bid for jobs, I get work. So I said, very good. And I stay at home and I can do it from my village. I'm from Chapai Nawabganj or some remote area, and I can sit at home and I can do it. It's very good. So I said, very good. But sir, I've got a lot of problems. So I said, well, what's your problem? So he said, I bid for a job, and there was this lady in France, in some village in France. She had a flower shop, and she had put the work out for bidding to develop a website for her flower shop. So I bid and I got that job. So I said, very good. And I got it for $500. So I said, very good. So I did I created the website, I sent it to her, and she sent me my $500. So I said, what's your problem? She said, sir, the bank won't give me my $500. So I said, why doesn't the bank give it to you? So the bank is asking me, why did this lady send you $500? So I said that I have done this work for her. So the bank now says, where is your contract? Where is the letter of credit? And he says, I just went on the internet, I just bid, I got the job. So he says, no, it can be terror financing, it can be all of these things, so the bank won't give me the money. So I said, okay. What else is your problem? He says, sir, I've got another problem. I said, what is that? Sir, I can't get married. I said, why can't you get married? So he says, sir, I like this girl, and I proposed to her. So she said, you have to talk to my father. So I went to talk to her father, and I said that I want to marry your daughter. So he said, what do you do? So I said, I'm a freelancer. So he said, what do you mean you're a freelancer? So then he says, no, where is your appointment letter? I don't know what work you are doing. I want your appointment letter. I want to know how much money you earn. This is, বাংলায় যেটা বলে এটা 2 নম্বরই কিছু করতেছো আমি তোমাকে আমার মেয়ে বিয়ে দিব না. Then he says, sir, I have another problem. I said, what's your third problem? So he says, the third problem is that it's related with my second problem, that I have this friend of mine who is also a freelancer, and luckily he's married, but then he went to this school to get his daughter admitted. And the principal will not admit her, because the principal is saying, what is your means of income? So he said, well, my means of income is some months I earn a hell of a lot of money, some months I don't earn any money. So the principal says, if you don't have a regular income, then I'm not sure you will be able to pay the fees for your daughter, so I don't want to admit your daughter. So I spoke to Honorable Prime Minister and said that I had this very interesting person come and meet me today. And Prime Minister, she is a completely different class. So Prime Minister said, listen, you do one thing. You talk to the ICT Ministry, and we talked to Joy, Sajeev Wajid Joy, our Honorable ICT advisor. And she said, let us recognize these freelancers. Let us create a system where the government will issue them a certificate of recognition. Once they have that certificate, the bank is going to help them, they will get a job, and I'm sure the father-in-law will also accept that he is somebody who is worthy of his daughter. So we did that, and as you know now, we have over 650,000 active freelancers in Bangladesh. And beauty about these freelancers is that they start doing things on their own, and then they are graduating into entrepreneurs. They start employing 4 or 5 other freelancers. And there has been a case where we have now a number of young startup companies. And we already have, we have got, the other day we were talking about startups. We have some startup companies which are valued over $1 billion now. These are called unicorns. So we already have 1 or 2 unicorns, and we've got at least 4 or 5 unicorns on the way. So the third success was digital, the connectivity which I'm talking about. We really did Digital Bangladesh. We built Digital Bangladesh, and we are. So now about the challenges. This was just to give you a little bit. I could go on and on why we are where we have reached, but I said I will not be brief, but that doesn't mean I'm going to take a lot of your time. I myself have another meeting to go to. So let's talk about challenges. Before I go into that, I want to say one thing. And I was mentioning that to Deputy Minister upstairs, that as far as I'm concerned, there is no unemployment in Bangladesh. There is overemployment in Bangladesh. And I'll tell you why. At this moment, as you know, in the garment industry, we are receiving lots of orders. Because of the pandemic has finished, and there has been the economies are opening up all over the world. China, which used to be the very big supplier of garments, China is moving out of this industry into more advanced industries. So there's a huge demand. We are getting a lot of new orders. The biggest challenge the garment industry is facing today is that they don't have workers. We are not getting workers. It is really difficult to find workers. The same thing happens if you know that when harvesting time comes, the farmers don't have enough people to harvest the crop. There is a huge, and as far as the more privileged among us, you all know that at home getting domestic help is next to impossible. So where is the unemployment? The unemployment is among people who have graduated, and they say that we don't get jobs. My question to them is that before you graduated, did you do any career planning? So you go and take a degree in history, you go and take a degree in sociology, you go and take just because you couldn't get into engineering, or you could not get into architecture, or you could not get into business administration, or you could not get into medicine. Because these areas which I mentioned, if you did any of these, you would get a job without any problem. But you then said that, okay, I could not get into those areas, so let me go into the other areas. Without doing career planning, you took a graduation, and now you say, I'm unemployed, the government must give you a job. My point is that before you embark on your studies, you must do a career planning. And if you required what was mentioned, that you must go for vocational training or vocational degrees. You see, in the United States, in the UK, in the development world, I'm not so sure about Canada, but I'm sure the same would apply in Canada. Young people, after they do their A-levels, they all do some vocational training, and then they really decide whether they want to go and do a university degree or not. Most of them don't. A very small portion of people go into university degree. Our problem is that our public university degree is so cheap. It's free. No, you charge 5 taka. Dhaka University still charges 5 taka. Highly subsidized. No, but I'm just joking with you. 5 taka is literally free. In today's days and age, 5 taka tuition fees is a joke. So, because it is free, whereas in the Western world, university education is very expensive. Students have to take student loans in the United States, and it takes them ages to pay off the student loans after they have got a job. So this is something which my advice to you was on this. Now the challenges. The biggest challenge which I think you all will face is the speed at which technology is changing. So in fact, there was a study done in the United States, and they said that people who, the first year students, by the time they reached the third year in university, whatever they learnt in the first 3 years, by the time they are in the third year, that what they learnt has become obsolete. That's the speed at which now technology is moving. It is at breakneck speed. We are experiencing is this connectivity which we take for granted, but it's technology. Today, the way I remember in the old days, High Commissioner was talking about flying. That reminded me, talking on the telephone. In the old days, in my young days, if my father had gone abroad and I wanted to talk to him, we would have to book a trunk call. It used to be called trunk call. I don't think you guys have even heard of that terminology. And you have to book a trunk call, then the guy would say that, okay, we'll connect you at 7 p.m. 3 days later. And then we all would sit next to the telephone that 3 days later, the phone call is going to come and we'll be able to speak to our father who is now traveling abroad. And today, I think even the landlines nobody uses. Not long ago, I remember getting, you see, to get a landline in Bangladesh, the telephone department, they used to give you I forget what the term was, a demand note, that's right. So they would give you a demand note. If you pay, after you paid the demand note, the demand note would actually put you into the queue for getting a telephone line. So if you got a demand loan, you would say, oh, wow, I've really achieved something. I've got the demand note now. The phone connection you would get maybe a year later. But the fact that you had got the demand note was a big thing. And today, as you see the technology today, the phone, it's second nature to us to pick up the phone and talk to somebody miles and miles away in a remote village in Africa. It's just second nature. You don't even think about it. So with the way the fourth and fifth industrial revolution is coming up, and the way technology is going forward, we are talking of robotics, we are talking about quantum mechanics, we are talking about Internet of Things, we are talking of artificial intelligence. It is frightening. And we have to prepare for that. That, I think, is going to be our biggest challenge. That if we do not keep up with this technology, we will be left behind because this is moving at such a speed. So there, Honorable Prime Minister, the first thing in order to keep up with this and to face this challenge is that we needed a digital infrastructure in place. And that we have succeeded in doing. We have put that in place, the digital infrastructure. Now, we have to impart the skills to our young people. So, I would again say, just like High Commissioner said, all of you are actually the golden generation. You are I would say, in the history of the world, you are the most privileged generation. But at the same time, I feel you will also be the most challenged generation. And you will really have to fix up, you will have to acquire the skills and the knowledge to face that challenges. And we are also living in a very, very difficult, we are passing through very difficult period in geopolitics. As High Commissioner rightly said, that the rule-based global order is under serious challenge. And how this plays out and how various countries are going to be affected is something which remains to be seen, and is something which each country will have to really address, taking the circumstances of that particular country into account. In the case of Bangladesh, we have faced, and we face, and experienced, and I think High Commissioner will agree with me, and especially in recent times, especially in the United States with the political developments which took place there in recent times, the classical definition of democracy, as everybody preached to us that this is what democracy should be. I think those who preach to us need to re-examine in their own arena whether what they are preaching to us, whether they are practicing themselves. That is, I think, one. The second is that we have experienced at times double standards, that we are judged by certain standards which are not applied in their own case. So that again is, I am not trying to in any way lower the importance of labor rights. I think labor rights and union rights and safe working conditions and is very, very important. But I would take the United States case. Only 19% of the labor in the United States is unionized. So when, and the labor are happy. So I would, here my point over here is that it's more important to see, rather than insisting on certain main conditions to be followed, it is really each country should be judged with whether what they are doing, their labor rights and their human rights are applicable, and the people who are actually affected are happy and are safe. That I think is, and this is a subject on which we can talk much more in detail. I'm just touching on it for very, very lightly. The other issue which I wanted to say on the geopolitical issue, which I mentioned, that it's we are really at this moment, especially of the Ukraine war, we are going through very, very challenging times. Our government stand on this is very, very clear. And this was what Father of the Nation, Bangabandhu, has laid down for us, and which we have been very, very religiously following. And that is, our foreign relations is malice towards none, friendship to all. And that is the policy which we are following and which we will continue to follow. Women rights, main subject of today's topic. So I'd like to again tell you, the other commissioner myself, we were in part of a panel in the, you may have heard of the Luna Shamsuddoha Award, which BASIS had organized. And Minister Deepu Moni was there. And on women rights, she gave an example which I think was absolutely fantastic. And I really, you know, when I go to these seminars and all, many people say many things. At times, something stands out so much that I put it into my computer here, and so that I can use it in future. And so I'm going to use that quote today. You see, she said that the men, us men, we consider that women should do the cooking and should do the stitching for us, and this is their job, and they should do the washing and the home chores. That's what women are only good for. But she then said, I'll say it in Bengali what she said, and then I'll translate it for Excellency. Then she said, হ্যাঁ ওটা ঠিকই আছে, সবাই মনে করে, পুরুষরা মনে করে যে আমাদের মহিলাদের কাজটা হলো রান্না করা, কাপড় সেলাই করা, এটা সবই ঠিক আছে, কিন্তু সব দর্জিরা প্রফেশনালি যখন যায় সব দর্জিরা পুরুষ, কিন্তু সব বরচিরা কিন্তু পুরুষ। যখন মানে করতে হবে আমাদের, মানে we will be unpaid. What she said was that when this is what is the general feeling, but in actual practicality all the tailors are men, all the chefs are all men. So the men consider that this job is for women as long as it is unpaid. And the moment you have to get paid for it, then they say, no, I will do this job myself. And I thought that that really summed up in a nutshell this the way men think. And I think until unless we men don't change this, our thought process, there is never, women rights will not truly be, for women rights to be truly established, for women to be truly equally treated, it is us men who have to change our attitude. And as far as our government is concerned, as far as Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is confirmed, it was Bangabandhu who in the Constitution, for the first time, we enshrined equal rights for men and women in our Constitution. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has actually working relentlessly for moving this forward. I mentioned this in that same panel, and I'll mention it again to you. Recently, on the 17th of March, I had the honor and privilege of accompanying Prime Minister to Tungipara on the occasion of Bangabandhu's birthday. So there you see the guard of honor comes. So the Honorable President was there and Prime Minister was there. So the system is President, Prime Minister, both of them go and lay the floral wreaths at the Mazar of Bangabandhu. And both of them, the Prime Minister and the President, they have this army guard of honor who goes in front. And in front of the Prime Minister, they were all women. All the guard of honors who were presenting were young army officers of the Bangladesh Army. And it gave me so much pride to see that it was the way our women have now been integrated into society. Of course, in percentage terms, we have a long way to go, but at least the beginning has started. And I would therefore really feel that Excellency mentioned about peacekeepers. Today, Bangladesh, as you know, is the #1 peacekeeping country, providing peacekeepers to all conflict areas in the world, and a large portion of the peacekeepers now are women. So we do appreciate that women's rights is very, very important, and 50% of the population are women, so there is no way you can ignore that. I'll conclude now, and before I conclude Canada and Bangladesh relations, this is, it goes back, Canada was one of the first countries to recognize Bangladesh. The present Prime Minister of Canada, his father was at that time the Prime Minister of Canada. And he and Bangabandhu had extremely close relations. Close friendship between our two countries has remained and continued and will continue to remain. I would like to really take this opportunity to thank the Canadian government for all the assistance which they have provided to Bangladesh in our journey over all this long period of time. And as High Commissioner very rightly pointed out, that it started with food aid, and today it has gone into high research with ICDDRB or with BRAC. So that also changes as the journey continues, priorities change, and that is something which is but natural. And that has happened. But I would like to also specifically thank Canada for the tremendous support they are giving to us for the Rohingyas, to take care of the Rohingyas. You know, I remember when the Myanmar was pushing all these refugees, we had actually blocked it. Our armed forces had sealed our border. We were not allowing them to enter. And there was a element or a section in the government, both in the political leadership as well as the establishment, who felt very strongly that we should not open our borders. And when we discussed this with Honorable Prime Minister, she says, no, you must open the borders, because do you remember that had India not opened the borders for us during our war of liberation, what would have happened to us? So we know what being a refugee is. And that is why she said, no, open the borders, let them come in. So, but of course, if you have 1 million refugees on your soil, there is a huge amount of pressure. And there, with all the other foreign friends and foreign countries who have helped us, Canada being one of the foremost there, I would really like to express my thanks to the government and people of Canada for their support. So with these words, I will end. I'm sure the Canadian and Bangladeshi relationship, friendship, cooperation will continue. Has become stronger and stronger over the last 50 years. And I believe and I'm certain that it will grow even stronger over the next 50 years. Thank you very much. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangabandhu, Bangladesh, Chirojibi ho.
Thanks to our Honorable Chief Guest for sharing his valuable insights, guidance, and priceless memories. I'd like to mention to the audience that apart from being the private industry and investment advisor to Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, he is also a member of Governing Board, Bangladesh Investment Development Authority, Prime Minister's Office. His dynamic leadership and far-reaching initiatives have reshaped the country's business environment and made significant contribution in achieving economic growth. And lastly, I would like to thank Sir again for strongly standing against patriarchy and speaking in favor of equality. We can definitely have another round of applause for that. Now, time for some special recognition. Dear audience, 3 existing students from 3 schools of Canadian University of Bangladesh are today getting recognized for their outstanding academic performance and leadership qualities. So I'll call out the students one by one, and I'm requesting them to take the honor from our guests. Firstly, I would like to call on stage Shakila Mojumdar from the School of Business. And she'll be receiving the honor from our Honorable Chief Guest. Dear volunteers, please help her. Can we have a round of applause for her? Shakila Mojumdar receiving the token of honor from our Chief Guest. Shakila is working with the branding and communication of the university along with her academic performance. Now I would like to call Muhammad Johirul Islam from the School of Engineering, Tripoli Department. And Johir will be taking the token of honor from our honorable special guest. Can we have a round of applause for him? Johir is also a Dyna Award winner, my fellow Dyna Award winner. So congratulations again. Oh, thank you, Johir, for handing over your newly published book to the respected guests. Now I'd like to call on stage Noshin Maisha from the School of Liberal Arts English Department to take the honor from our guest of honor, Her Excellency Lily Nichols. Noshin Maisha has excellent academic performance. She's the Vice President of CUB English Club and a Department Ambassador. Congratulations to her. Now, I would request our Honorable Program Chair, Founder and Chairman of Canadian University of Bangladesh to hand over crests to our honorable guests. Dear volunteers, please bring the crests. Our program chair will be handing over the crest to our chief guest. A big round of applause, please. To our special guest. A round of applause, please. Now, sir will deliver the token of appreciation to our guest of honor. Thank you. Now I would humbly request the founder and chairman of Canadian University of Bangladesh, Dr. Chaudhry Nafis Sharafat sir, our guardian and one of the prominent entrepreneurs of the country, to deliver his valuable speech and closing remarks. Requesting sir to take the floor.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A very good morning or good afternoon to everyone, and it is my pleasure to have you all here at the Canadian University of Bangladesh to celebrate the 50 years of friendship between Canada and Bangladesh. We are honored to have the private industry and investment advisor to Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, Mr. Salman F. Rahman, MP, as our chief guest today. He is also a renowned business tycoon and philanthropist who is continuously working for the development of our country. We warmly thank him for his presence today to celebrate the Canada-Bangladesh friendship, a journey of 50 years. As our special guest, we have Deputy Minister of Education, Mr. Mohibul Hassan Chaudhry, MP. His foresightness and relentless efforts has been instrumental in developing education sector of the country. He has always encouraged the private universities. It would be possible to come this far and move forward without his guidance and support. I thank him for all his support till now and for the coming days, as we will be working together for the society by providing quality education. And as we all have gathered together to celebrate the Canada-Bangladesh friendship, we have the perfect guest for this occasion. Her Excellency Lily Nichols, High Commissioner of Canada to Bangladesh, as our guest of honor and keynote speaker for today's auspicious occasion. I'm truly honored that for Her Excellency has managed her precious time to celebrate the day with us, and I thank you for your generous support. Canada-Bangladesh has seen 50 years of strong bilateral relationship, and we look forward to building on to this. Canada's commercial relationship with Bangladesh has grown significantly over the past decade, crossing trades worth more than Canadian $2 billion. As a long-standing international development partner, Canada always came forward to assist Bangladesh on capacity building, sustainable development, poverty eradication, educational advancement, and much more. I firmly believe that this friendship will only grow stronger in the coming days. For Canadian University of Bangladesh, the High Commission of Canada has been a strong source of guidance and assistance since day one. With the help of their dynamic team, we have been able to develop a world-class curriculum, establish strong ties with Canadian universities, modernize learning process, all of which has enabled our university to set exemplary footprints in the higher education. Moving forward, we are working to establish a Canadian school and Canadian college in Dhaka very soon. And thankfully, the esteemed Commission has generously extended their cooperation in these benevolent initiatives as well. Thanks to the university management who worked really hard to arrange this event and make it an iconic one. And last but not the least, our beloved student who have added an extra charm to celebrate these days. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful message. Being a prominent advocate of quality education in the private education sector of Bangladesh. So officially, dear audience, we have reached towards the end of today's program. And thank you very much to our guest panel members for being very patient, and to our audience and the students, the faculties, and everyone who are present here today. So I'm officially concluding today's program, wishing all of you good health. So this is Upama Ahmed signing off officially. Take care and stay safe. One small announcement, dear students, you are requested to stay in the auditorium. Refreshments